All right, let's talk about perimeter and area. I know you've probably heard these words thrown around together, right? But here's the thing. They measure two completely different things. Think of it like this. One is the fence, and the other is the yard inside the fence. And in the next few minutes, we're going to make the difference between them crystal clear.
So, let's get right to it. Here is the absolute core difference. When we're talking about perimeter, we are all about the outside. The border, the outline, the distance around something. But when we switch to area, now we're measuring the inside, the surface, the space it actually covers. So one is a line, the other is a flat surface. Let's really dig into that.
Okay, first up, perimeter. The absolute easiest way to get your head around this is to picture something real. Imagine you're building a fence around a garden. Or maybe you're putting a fancy frame around a picture. What do you need to know? You need to know the total length of that outer edge, right?
And if we want to get a little more formal about it, here's the textbook definition. Perimeter is just the total distance you'd travel if you literally walked along the boundary of a shape and ended up right back where you started. That's it. It's a measure of length.
So how do you actually find it? Well, the good news is it's actually beautifully simple. For pretty much any shape with straight sides, you just do three things. 1. Identify all the sides. 2. Find out how long each of those sides is. And 3. You just add them all up. See? It's all about simple addition.
Okay, and we've got to talk about units for a sec. Since perimeter is just a length, we measure it in, well, simple units of length, like meters or centimeters or feet. Now, notice something really important here. There's no squared anything. It's just meters, not meters squared, and that is a crucial detail to hang on to, because it's all about to change.
All right, let's pivot to our second big idea, area. Now, if the perimeter was the fence, the area is all the grass inside that fence. If the perimeter was the picture frame, the area is the canvas inside that frame. See the difference? We're not just walking around the edge anymore. Now we're talking about covering the entire surface.
So formally speaking, area is the measure of space that a flat surface takes up. It basically answers the question, hey, how much stuff, like paint or carpet or tiles, would I need to cover this whole shape?
And this is where we see a huge shift in how we calculate things. Remember how perimeter was all about adding up the sides? Well, for the area of a rectangle, it's totally different. We find it by multiplying its length by its width. We've gone from addition to multiplication, and that, right there, is a really key difference.
This brings us to that super important point about units I mentioned earlier. What happens when you multiply meters by meters? You get square meters. That little 2 you see in m squared, it's not just there for decoration. It's telling you we've moved from a one-dimensional line to a two-dimensional space. You are literally counting how many little 1 by 1 squares you can fit inside the shape.
Okay, so theory is great and all, but let's make this real. Let's actually see it in action. We're going to take one simple rectangle and look at it through both of our new lenses. We'll calculate its perimeter and its area so you can really see the difference side by side. So here's our example. Let's imagine a nice rectangular garden. It's 10 meters long and 5 meters wide. A pretty standard shape, right? Something you might actually have in your own backyard.
So check this out. Here are the two different approaches right next to each other. For the perimeter, we're going to add the length and width, and then we'll double that number. But for the area, we just multiply the length by the width. See? Two totally different paths that are going to lead to two very, very different answers.
Okay, let's tackle the perimeter first. We take our length, which is 10, and our width, which is 5. Add them together, you get 15. Then we multiply that by 2. And the result? 30 meters. That's it. That's the total length of fence we'd need to go all the way around our garden. All right, now for the area. This time we multiply the length, 10, by the width, 5. And what do we get? We get 50. But wait, it's not just 50, it's 50 square meters. A completely different number with a completely different unit, because we're measuring a completely different thing. We're measuring the actual space we have for planting inside the fence.
So we've seen how they're calculated differently. Now let's get practical and talk about when to use them. Just think of perimeter and area as two different tools in your toolbox. The real trick is knowing which job requires which tool.
So here's a classic scenario for you. You're at the hardware store. You're buying materials to build a fence around your garden. To figure out how much fencing you need to buy, are you calculating the perimeter or the area? What do you think?
You got it. It's the perimeter.
Of course, a fence goes around the edge. So anytime you hear words that describe a boundary, words like fence, border, trim, edge, that is your big clue that you're dealing with perimeter.
Okay, let's try another one. Next job. You're redoing your kitchen, and you need to buy enough tiles to cover the entire floor. This time, what measurement are you thinking about?
This time, yep, it's all about the area. Tiles don't just go around the edge, do they? Nope, they cover the entire surface. So when you hear words that are about covering a space, like tile or paint or carpet, that's your signal. You need to calculate the area.
And let's end with a really fascinating question that ties both of these ideas together. Let's say your perimeter is fixed. Imagine you have exactly 36 meters of fencing, no more, no less. Does every single rectangle you can build with that fence have the same area inside? Or could one particular shape give you way more room for your plants than another? Now that is something to chew on. A situation where the outside measurement directly controls the amount of space you get on the inside.